Welcome to HW Hockey.
What's up, you beauties? Welcome to High and Wide Radio, episode 50 of season 6. I'm your host, Jim Iacovone, joined as always by the one and only Jack Smith. If you're catching us live on YouTube, make sure to smash that subscribe button and hit the alert so you'll never miss a show. And for all you podcast listeners out there, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you're first in line when the newest episode drops. Jack, tell us about Phans of Philly.
Phans of Philly. All right. I'm going to tell you all about Phans of Philly as soon as I feel like it. All right. Flyers fans, we've got something special for you today. Looking to take your game day experience to the next level? Then look no further than Phans of Philly. With over 14 years of experience, they're the go-to team for putting together unforgettable travel packages for die-hard Philly sports fans like all of us.
Yeah, and why Phans of Philly, you ask? Let me break it down for you guys. They've spent years building the best relationships with bars, hotels, teams, transportation, you name it. You might have seen their Eagles trip in Brazil, having a great time. Every trip they plan gets better, and trust me, they'll make sure your experience is top-notch.
That's right, Jim. Whether it's scouting out the perfect hotel, finding the hottest nightlife, or securing the best seats in the arena, Phans of Philly has it all figured out. They know how to make your trip an absolute blast. So head over to fansofphilly.com and book your next Flyers road trip today.
Great stuff. All right, so boys and girls, obviously, this is going to be, it's a somber start to the episode. Obviously, there's been a terrible tragedy that has shocked the hockey world. And we want to, kind of just give our condolences. And, our hearts are heavy. Feels like the world of hockey is just a little bit darker. We lost two brothers, two great hockey people, two great human beings in Johnny and Matty Gaudreau. They were not only gifted athletes, but incredible human beings who brought light and laughter to everyone who knew them. On the ice, Johnny dazzled us with his speed, skill, and heart. Off the ice, he and Matty were inseparable, two guys who shared a bond that was as strong as their love for the game and for each other.
In moments like this, we're reminded that hockey is more than just a game, it's a family. And today we mourn as one. We send all of our love and strength to the Gaudreau family and their loved ones. Johnny and Matty will forever be remembered not just for what they did on the ice, but for who they were, brothers, sons, friends, and bright lights in the hockey world.
Yep. So rest in peace, Johnny and Matty Gaudreau. You'll be deeply missed, but obviously never, ever forgotten. And, just Jack, he was ours. Is like this hit everybody, right? Fans all over the world, all over the United States, Canada. It was a shock. And somehow it just, as more news trickled out, it kept getting worse and worse. And not that you ever want anything like this to happen to anybody, but for it to happen to someone so close to home, as good a person and as good a family as this is and were, it was a shock. You really felt it in your chest, I think. Like I said, Johnny Gaudreau was ours. He was South Jersey. He was the best. I think it's pretty much hands down the best hockey player to ever play in the NHL from South Jersey, and not far from us. Went to the same high school as me, so I have a connection in that way. Plays at the hockey rink, literally 5-10 minutes down the road from me. Right, my brother plays over there all the time, or he used to play over there all the time. He's got South Jersey connections all over. I'm sure by now everyone's seen or knows someone that has a story or knew Johnny and Matty in some way. And very, very just super, super heartbreaking stuff, man. And yeah, Jack, you want to chime in on this? I know you have some thoughts here.
Yeah, you nailed it. It felt like one of our own had made it. Not just Johnny, but the whole family. A lot of people I know, my father-in-law worked with Guy a lot, and a lot of people who grew up around more so where you're at, Jim, but basically South Jersey. Like he probably taught you how to skate. The Gaudreau family is well loved out here, and just such a needless deaths, and horrifying deaths, because somebody was incredibly irresponsible, lazy, and just downright stupid. And the more that comes out about that a-hole, it just makes you angrier, and just something that just needless, shouldn't have happened. And it's one of those horrible, horrible, horrible things. I'm going to have 2 boys myself, so I really feel for the family. I've heard things, and when I was younger, I felt like I could take some of this stuff easier. And when I heard of his dad visiting the rink, and, just fell to his knees, and like those are his 2 boys. I have a son. I'm going to have another son. Like, I cannot imagine. And when I take into account how stupid and needless it was, you become very sad, but also very enraged. And it's horrible. And I just can't believe it happened. And I remember getting the text messages, like, well, the reports came out and whatnot. And that's a whole nother conversation within itself. But I just wanted it to not be true so bad. I went to bed that night praying it was not true, and I don't want anybody to get killed, but I really was hoping it wasn't them. And then as more and more details comes out, everybody knows the story by now. It was just enough. Stop. This is just so horrible. So I really, hearts out to the family, obviously. It's just a terrible. This doesn't happen too often, thank God. Because when it does, it really hits close to home, and just absolutely horrible.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned speechless. Like, how can you find the words for something like this?
I
Like,
didn't even know how to wrap that up. Like,
it's truly heartbreaking. And look, I might come off. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to come off. I'm just going to be honest with you guys, right? Like, I'm just going to be upfront. When a celebrity dies, or someone that I really have no connection to, the only celebrity that I can think of at the top of my head who I was a little bummed out about when they passed away was, of course, now I'm going to forget his name, Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, because I grew up listening to their music, but it didn't hit me the way that this did, right? Like, in our area, a lot of people that I know knew Johnny Gaudreau. I mentioned we went to the same high school. I still talk to people from my high school. A lot of people were in his class. I think he was a grade younger than my brother. So everyone's got a story, and my whole Facebook feed, because I think Facebook's more like, family and friends kind of thing, whereas Twitter is like, everybody. My timeline was just filled with Johnny Gaudreau stories, and it's a sin. It's heartbreaking. I'm not gonna. I don't want to repeat the same things that everybody knows. The kids and the unborn child, and just so sad and so heartbreaking. And so I wanted to. I mean, there's really nothing that we can do aside from pray and send our thoughts and of strength for the family. And they put out a nice statement. Which I thought was, they didn't have to do that. Mentioned something that they're on their knees now and they'll eventually stand again. They're a strong family, and we pray for them. And the most that you and I could do, Jack, is dedicate an entire episode to the Gaudreaus, Johnny and Matty. Now we're going to move on and talk about other topics, but this is to them. So just heartbreaking stuff. It's terrible.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go into shitting on the guy who should. See, just about to do it. So,
well, don't drink and drive, guys. Like, I'm not going to make this a whole thing on that, but just don't do it with all the options you have today.
In the age of Uber, exactly. In the age of Uber, it's not worth it.
Don't.
It just isn't worth it.
Well, I mean, so I used to. So they were cycling out there, I think, or they were riding bikes at the very least. I used to ride out that way. It's farmland. If anybody's wondering what the area is like down there, Salem County, Woodstown, near Auburn Road, where the crash happened, it's farm. It's farm and long, dark roads at night. I don't know what time they were riding their bikes, but it's long, straight roads. There's no street lights. It's not like they were killed on the side of a busy street. It can get a little desolate depending on the time of night, time of day. and it's just farm, right? And I've gotten lost on my bike back in my cycling days. If my phone died and my GPS was off, everything looks the same. It's all cornfields and the roads look all the same. And, there's farmland and there's, a bunch of like barns. Everything looks the same. So it's just insane how in one instance, he decided to do what he did right then and there. And they happen to be there. It's just crazy, crazy shit when you think about it.
It ain't right.
No, it's not. So, all right. I don't mean to move on in a disrespectful way, but we're not going to say anything that you guys haven't already heard. We kind of just wanted to pay our respects to the Gaudreaus, Matty, Johnny, and the Gaudreau family. It's so insanely sad. How about Cole Caulfield changing his number? And there were people that looked up to Johnny Gaudreau. He kind of, not that he paved the way, like Marty St. Louis was a guy I think of as well. But, you hear it so often. If you're going to be a smaller guy, you need to be insanely talented and skilled. And Johnny Gaudreau is the guy for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, Briere's another one. Small guy told he was never going to make it. These guys paved the way. And Gaudreau, he just felt like the guy that should have been here. He was in our own backyard. He went in the third round. We didn't take him. I remember being pissed off about that. Then he had a chance to come here, which the team needed to rebuild. But the idea of him coming here was just too much to bear. Like I said, you know what? If they're bringing in D'Angelo anyway, go for it. It's Johnny Hockey. He's one of us. Bring him home. And this is just, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah. And there's nothing to say other than, what we said, and it's already been said. I'm sure some other shows have great stories. Nasty Knuckles I could think of. We'll have great stories. I'm forgetting somebody's name. He's on the radio. Maybe it'll come to me later on in the day, but very good friends. Hunter Brody, I'm sorry. Very good friends with Johnny Gaudreau, I imagine. If he hasn't told stories already, I'm sure, it's obviously tough for him, but hopefully one day he'll be able to tell some stories. Those two are really close. Crooked Zebra Records chimes in. Johnny Hockey was supposed to be a Flyer someday. Messed up. And I can't say that I didn't think about that when this happened, right? He should have been a Flyer, in my opinion, even if it didn't make sense.
That's what, even if it didn't make sense, we wanted it to happen. He wanted it to happen. We were just in a spot where, as a lifelong Flyers fan like Johnny was, you didn't see yourself, the Flyers, ever in a position not to acquire a player of that talent. And here's a memory for you. I love how he told the Devils, who offered him more money, to Afangul, I grew up hating you. I ain't playing for you. And went to the Blue Jackets. That's a good memory for me right there. Good for him. Stay to your guns.
Yeah, if you can't play for the Flyers, at least don't play for the Devils. That was great. Good one.
Exactly.
Okay. So I don't know if we mentioned yet, we are going to have a special guest. He'll be on in about 15 minutes. Mr. Anthony DiGrazio, the one and only Phillies Flyer. I believe he might have a couple of Gaudreau stories. Apparently he grew up playing hockey with them, so that'll be cool to hear.
We saw that picture of them, yeah.
Yeah. Sean C., you'll never convince me that Johnny Gaudreau waited as long as he could for the Flyers that day when he was a free agent. I know. Really kind of sad stuff when you think about it, just it's crazy that it didn't happen. It happens all the time and Flyers couldn't make it work, but let's move on a little bit. All right. So we have some good topics to talk about for you guys tonight. When Anthony comes on, I would like to get into a little bit, Jack, are the Flyers a destination for teams, for free agents anymore? And you and I have talked about this a little bit in the past. But it's kind of something that came up in our chat, and I think Anthony was making a couple good points, and something that we could have a conversation about in the first week of September, about a week or two ahead of the rookie games. So we'll have that. I also wanted to talk to you about Tyson Foerster. And this is something we can get into ahead of time here. So let's kind of open this up a little bit. Do you think Tyson Foerster can build on his rookie season from last year?
Absolutely. I think he's under the right coaching staff to do so. He's all around a really good player, and it just felt like his offensive ability was a little slow to start. But the guy still nodded. What did he have? 20 goals, 21 goals in a rookie season. They started off scoring almost nothing. There's no reason to believe he can hit. He's the type of player I don't see needing some time to really get going now that he's been here for a year. I just hope the offense can get going with it. And if it does, I think he'll eclipse what he did last year and more. And I'm not saying he'll score pot 30 or anything like that, but I think he'll be in better roles. I think the power play has to be better. And I just think the Flyers overall are a little bit better, at least offensively. It'll find himself in situations, and maybe finds himself playing on a line with Michkov where he becomes freed up because they're focusing on him or something of that nature. There's many reasons. Plus, I believe in his talent. Like, Jim, you always believed in his talent. You're a big fan of his before the Flyers drafted him. And I'm starting to see it now. And I just like that he's an overall good player. He can be on any situation really on the ice, which is great. So there's no reason to believe this way he plays, the way he is with this coaching staff, that he can't do what he did last year and just start scoring a little bit sooner and just up his points. So I think so for sure.
Okay, so here's a question for you, and I'm going to put you on the spot because that's a fun thing to do while we're live. What would you say a next step season looks like points wise for Tyson Foerster?
So what did he finish with last year? I know he had it was 20 something goals, but I don't know how many assists he had.
20 goals, 13 assists for 33 points in 77 games.
I'd like to see him teeter with 24, 25 goals. And the assists, I'm not going to kill him on, but maybe something like 18 assists. So let's say 24 goals, 18 assists. And he's got to keep up his great defensive play, all-around play, stay healthy. And you said he had, so how many points did he have last year?
33. And I think 24 and 18 puts him at 42.
42-ish. So that's excuse me. It's a 9-point increase, something like that.
Yep.
Like, I don't think that's out of the realm, adding 9-10 points to your resume and staying healthy and all that, especially if you can keep up your play. He's more established now. The rookie season's out of the way. Hopefully there's not a sophomore slump. But he's a guy that just seems to get some shit done. And if God forbid he finds himself on the power play that is actually okay, just basic minimum stuff, then I think that'll up his points as it is. If he doesn't, that's fine, because growth isn't linear. But if he's the kind of guy who just keeps growing, because he's already, I think, surprised a lot of people based on where he was drafted and what his overall ability would be. But yeah, I mean, see, now if he takes a step to 25, do I think next year he's going to take a step to 30? That's a different story. But I don't think, based on how in a little amount of time he started scoring, not that little, but he did not score for quite a while. And towards the end of the year, the team kind of fell off altogether. So when I break down where he produced, I don't think it's crazy to add like 4 or 5 more goals to what he had last year, and just naturally being out there and having some camaraderie with these players, because he'll have a year plus under his belt with these guys. Add some more assists, and then you got Michkov factor. We'll see what that ripple effect is with the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, I am curious to see what the Michkov factor does for other players. Because if he's going to be the goal scoring machine, somebody's going to have to be passing him the puck, right? And they're going to be picking up first and second assists. So I'm curious to see how the Michkov factor plays out.
Are you ready to move on from Foerster? Because I want to put you on the spot with something not Foerster related.
So I wanted to mention that for some reason, because I don't think that every single player is going to take a step forward next year.
It's so unlikely. Yeah.
So let's say, Michkov comes in to his rookie season. Tippett had a very nice year. I think Tippett is what he is. I think we can expect 25, 30 goals, 25, 30 assists from him year in, year out. Just my opinion. We have Farabee, who we talked about last episode, tailed off towards the end. I think we see more of the same, more of the good Farabee for most of the year. So I don't really see him taking a step back. Who am I missing? Bobby Brink. Bobby Brink, for me, didn't take enough of a step forward to take a step back, if that makes sense.
I think he just needs to show consistency throughout the entire season. That's
right.
what we're looking for from him.
Sure. And so that to me leaves Tyson Forster. And I don't I love Tyson Forster, but I kind of believe in the sophomore slumps.
It's a legit
So
thing.
I'm interested to see how he looks in camp and how he starts the season, right? Because we know he started out offensively inept last year. His defensive game was sound, played very good away from the puck, surprisingly good. Can he replicate that? If the offense isn't there, will the play away from the puck be good again? Or was that just a fluky thing, right? Because doing something to you, being consistent is the hardest part. So we'll see. Jay Grebby chiming in. No way. He stayed in town all summer working out. I love it.
Love it.
I just have a thing. Like, not everyone's going to take another step, right? So is Tyson Forster not going to be one of those guys that takes a step? We'll see. There's no evidence that backs it up. It's just kind of like this feeling I have.
Well, and the feeling is, and I get it, not every player is going to be step up. It just doesn't make sense. It's like if that happened, they're not only a playoff team, but they're like in a solid position. And I don't, it just seems unlikely.
Yeah. Go ahead. You want to put me on the spot with something?
Well, I'm glad you brought this comment up. So let's say Frost does play with Mishkov and they light it up. Frost, after this season, becomes I believe he's still restricted. I could be wrong. I think he has one more year restricted after this. How much money is he making next year? Do you put him with a superstar, potential franchise elite guy like Mishkov and turn around and sign Frost to like a big money deal? Now, he's not your number 1C, but I'm saying like he's your number 2C going forward. Maybe he gets the 8-year extension or something like that for however much money. Are you okay doing something like that with the Michkov factor? Because when you talk Michkov factor, how it can affect a young player, if he spends most of the season with Frost, that's who it's going to affect the most. And right now, that's what the lineup is looking like. Obviously, that's subject to change, but it could really affect Frost. And we've seen a lot of Frost now. We've had a lot of drama with Frost and seasons and whatnot. If some guy comes in and he pads his stats, and they're playing great together, say they're playing great together, they're a natural fit, are you turning around and signing this guy 8 years, $7 million? I don't know what it says, whatever, some crazy number. Like, are you locking him in?
No.
You're gonna have to make a decision, right?
I'm gonna try to get him to bite on the same contract that, or a similar contract that Shane Pinto signed. So I think Puckpedia has Shane Pinto he's making 3.75 the next 2 years, and Morgan Frost is making 2.1. If Frost, so those last 2 seasons, 46 points in 81 games, 41 points in 71 games, has yet to score 20 goals or record 30 assists. If Frost can put up a 50 to 60 point season with 20 goals, 30 assists, then I'm going to offer him another, let's go 1 or 2 year deal, 4 or 4.5 for Frost. Okay. And then, if he continues the 50 to 60 points or even eclipses 60, then we can talk big time extension. He'll be, unfortunately, he's not getting younger. He'll be 26 by the time this season's done. So he's not a spring chicken anymore. And if they do give him another 1 or 2 year deal, he'll be 28. Right. He's supposed to be right smack in the middle of his prime there. It's going to be. I really don't know. It's kind of up to Morgan Frost, right?
Well, here's my last part of that. Let's say he finishes the season. Him and Mishkov they just make sense. Mishkov's still a real deal. He's cashing in. Frost finishes the season with 20 goals, 51 assists for 71 points. What do? You still try to sell him on that? If
Frost records 71 points?
Just saying. This is a goofy, what if, but stranger things have happened.
If Frost puts up 71 points, then I think you have to look up maybe a longer term deal.
Okay.
Because that's pretty good for second line center production.
Could also be false if it's purely with Michkov too. So a lot of risk there.
It's definitely something, because there are times when obviously Morgan Frost has the skill and he sometimes does things no other player on the ice can do for the Flyers. And then there are times it's like, where were you going with that? What was the intent with that pass, or why do you got to go, behind the back through the legs on the power play to the blue line? Do you know what I mean? There's stuff like that that'll piss you off. But if you score in 71 points, all of a sudden that stuff doesn't bother me so much.
But it's a lot, like 51 assists, and it's because of Michkov. Are you gonna bite and be like, oh, hey, I'm a believer all of a sudden. This makes sense. Let's do it. I don't know.
No, I think it would still be fair to say. I mean, if he's getting Michkov the puck,
there's something there for that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh man, that would be polarizing. That would be a hell of a conversation. What is Frost going to bring in?
Yeah, that would be something.
A lot of people, fans, and also the organization, I think are done with Frost. It's just a matter of time. So for something like that to enter the fray, it's like,
yeah, he's one of those guys. I mean, we could probably have a Frost discussion the same way we did Farabee last week, where who knows? Like, Frost will determine his future. Same way. I mean, Farabee's under contract, so he'll be here whether he stinks or not, unless they trade him.
Cousins and Power. Let's go. I do that in a heartbeat.
There you go. Crooked Zebra chiming in too. I feel like Frost's hands really attracted a lot of attention as a prospect, a gamble. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, we do have our very special guest in the waiting room. We want to bring him in so he waits no longer. From Philly Flyer, Mr. Anthony DiGrazio. Ant,
what's going on? What's going on? I sound good. Am I coming through? Am I good to go?
He's here. It's
Beautiful.
real.
Beautiful.
He's real. He does exist.
Beautiful. Oh man, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. I've been listening to a little bit. Daughter starting school this week, dance class. Things have been busy, so I tried to listen when I could. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Beautiful.
Thanks for taking the time, man. We know it's a busy time of year. School's starting. You have all the after school stuff going on. So we appreciate you taking some time out of your night here.
Oh, no problem. Wouldn't want to spend it with anybody else.
Nah, you gotta make us blush. So, and obviously we want to get to the conversation we were talking the other day in the group chat with or the Flyers destination still for free agents. So we'll get into that. We started the show. We talked about the Gaudreaus, obviously, and Jack and I touched on some things, and we want to let you get your kind of, if you want, and you feel comfortable. Give us some of your memories and some of your connections, because what I found, at least over the last week or so, is whether you're from South Jersey, North Jersey, whether you're from Pennsylvania, someone's got a story, someone's got a connection, and we know that you have one. So can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. It's just to start, like, just the situation is just gut wrenching. It's been on my mind since it happened, like everybody else. Before I kind of dive into it real quick, you're seeing the hockey community, right? It's at large. The story kind of blew up just because of how tragic it is, and everything from the sister's wedding to being both brothers, right? Like and Matthew's wife being pregnant. Just a tragic situation, obviously. But people are seeing the hockey community at large. It's a small, niche group of people. I grew up playing it since I was 3 years old. Now I'm not like a prospect or anything like Johnny Gaudreau was, obviously. But it's really symbolizing how strong and how supportive the hockey community is at large, right? And I think people need to understand it's different than other sports in the sense of, to have a kid of yours play hockey, it takes a village. It's not just, you have a game once a weekend or something like that. Like, other parents on teams become basically your second set of parents. Like, I have parents of my friends that I still talk to just because of that's how hockey is, the long road trips, the hotels, because your parents might not be able to take you that weekend. So, you have these relationships with these people. And specifically with Johnny Gaudreau, I was a teammate of his on the Hershey, Quebec team back in 2006. I played against him, Little Flyers, Hollydale. And obviously what makes, I know Johnny obviously more so than Matthew, just because I played with him and things like that. But Johnny was special in the sense that he didn't make anybody feel like they weren't good at the sport, or he probably knew when you're on his team or you're playing against him that he was the best player on the ice. the skill was there. Just watching him as a player, like if he was on the ice, you just kind of had to like stand up and watch when it was his turn to be on the ice and his shift. The way he would just take the puck from coast to coast and make it look effortless, like it was unbelievable. It truly was unbelievable. But he didn't let that,
There you go, Ant.
Yeah, there you go, throwback right there. Before one of the games, we had like a team picture, and I got the opportunity and honor to even stand next to him. But no, we were cool. Obviously lost communication as he got older and made the transition to college and professional hockey. But he's just a good dude. He made you feel like it doesn't matter if you were a fourth line, like grinder enforcer, like he made you feel like you were an important aspect of that team. Like it never was like, oh, I'm obviously more talented, so like, I'm going to talk down to you or belittle you. Like everybody was important. You're seeing that everybody says that, right? Like everything everybody's coming in with is like, he was just special, nice, no ego. Like that was the thing. There was no ego with him at all. Like, he knew he was great, but it wasn't in your face. Like he just showed you the skill. As a small player too, I was usually one of the smaller guys on the ice. It was just like, just amazing, just watching him skate and like just finesse up and down the ice. And some stories, like specifically, I remember when I was on the Ice Dogs, and I think he was playing for Hollydale at the time. Our coach and a couple kids on the team, like, oh, just hit him. Like, that's all you got to do. Knock him off the puck. And like it was a sure thing, right? Like that's the game plan. Take him out of the game. Like you're good to go. You're going to win. You couldn't do that. Like you couldn't hit him. Like it sounds easy. He knew where the puck was going to be. He knew where the play was going to be. And there was just, the IQ made up for the size a million times over. And it's like, he just read the game in a different way. And as a smaller guy, you sort of have to find those things, right? Like, you might not have the physicality or the size. So you have to say like, how can I work around that and use my smaller size to an advantage? And it was the speed, the elusiveness, and the IQ. One story I can specifically remember that I'll say real quick. When I was on the Ice Dogs, we were AA, obviously, and I think it was either Little Flyers or Hollydale. We played their team. It was like a Silver Sticks tournament, something like that. So it was kind of like a bigger game. And we were in the AAA bracket. So like we weren't really expected to do much, but we had a really good team. So like we were pretty confident. We ended up like beating their team really badly. And their dad was the coach, Guy Gaudreau. So, the game ends. We're talking trash all game to each other. The game ends. We're walking out of the locker room, like hanging out with our parents and things like that. Next thing you know, Guy Gaudreau and all of the players on the team come out in their full gear, except their skates and without their helmet. They just start walking out to the lobby. I look a couple of my friends. I'm like, what the hell are they about? Like, what are they doing? Guy Gaudreau had them running like laps around the building for losing to us. It was like, we're just a AA team. They're a AAA team. So Johnny's running around the building. And then he sees a couple of me and my friends that he knew, just from playing together. He just looks at us, shakes his head. He goes like, you assholes.
Oh my God.
He did that smile. Like in all the pictures you're seeing, like you see that smile that he has. Like he called us assholes, but like it was just that like funny smile because he's like, couldn't have beat us. Like just crazy stories like that. Like it was just the smile that he had is something that I always remember. And like I said before, like the community of hockey it's small. Everybody sort of knows everybody. And just what the Gaudreau family has done for hockey over there in Hollydale, like the clinics, Johnny taking his time to come back and play with them. Like they're just a great family. They're an extension. They just kind of show, they're like a poster child, I guess, like for what a hockey family is. And you're seeing all those comments from all the players and things and people that are remembering them.
It really has been incredible. And, for myself, maybe a lot of people, I don't know if we truly understand the loss here. Obviously, from the family perspective, it's an incredible, massive, massive loss.
Yeah.
But for the hockey world, it's obviously not, it doesn't match that, but it's pretty friggin' big to lose these two guys. Especially, it's a massive loss for this area, all over, but specifically here. So
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, like I said, like they're just an embodiment of like what a hockey family is. Like just the extension of just being kind. And again, it's like the whole no ego thing. Like they were raised the right way. Everybody like in every message you read, like it's just kind. You wouldn't know like he was this big superstar, right? Like I had one of my friends message me because we were devastated, right? It's just like everybody else, and we were just talking about it. And he said, "Yeah, I ran into Johnny a few years ago in Avalon, and we're just shooting the shit like we didn't miss a day, like we were just back in the day playing hockey." And he was just a normal guy, like just a normal guy who just happened to be a superstar, like it's just how it was. But yeah, the community. They helped put sort of like I said it too, like the tri-state area on the map, and like the little kids got to know like somebody from here made it, right? And he was little, and it's like a Marty St. Louis type thing, like or a Briere type thing, like that little guy who you're like, oh, he's too small, he'll never make it. Every level he proved everybody wrong because you knew that was the thing. Like, oh, and I think he was drafted like 4th or 5th round, so it's not like he was this first round pick. Like he had to prove it even getting into the NHL, even though he had all that skill. And it just goes to show like how skilled he was. But yeah, like you said, he meant everything to this area. And his family did too. So my thoughts are with their family because it's tragic.
yeah, it really is. And I wanted to thank you for sharing those stories. That was great stuff. Hopefully everybody enjoyed those. I know I did, or we did.
Oh, yeah.
So let's kind of change gears a little bit here. And we were discussing Forster a little bit before you came on. We were discussing Frost a little bit before you came on. We're talking about growth and, how players, we're expecting everyone to take a step next year. But as Flyers fans and, fans in general, we know that it doesn't work that way. Some guys may take a step back. Right. And we don't like to think about that, but it just happens. So we got talking Frost and, we're trying to project, does Forster take a step forward next year? Or does Frost make an impression? Does he take another step forward? Because, 40 points as a second line center is not really going to cut it. Is there a guy specifically in mind for you? Or it can even be one of these two guys that's going to take a pretty big step next year?
I think I want to say Frost has no choice but to take that next step. I don't think we can do another year after this of like what is Morgan Frost. I think this year he will be put in the best position that he has been as a Flyer. But here's the thing, like with Michkov, like I don't want to put pressure on him as well. He already has enough pressure, like adjusting to just normal life, like not even on ice things. It's just like more like of a personal thing that he has to deal with. But I would say, if not Morgan Frost, I would say Joel Farabee, just because I think he's going to be traded. I think it's this. I don't. The Farabee thing is kind of odd to me because I mean, right now I think he's projected a third line guy, like, and he should be a 70-ish point player. Like he makes it kind of look easy. Like we kind of like. I don't want to say people shit on him, but I mean he's putting up like point. He's gotten better every year. I'm pretty sure point wise too. I think he's just shy of hitting 70. I forget how much he just had. 50, 60, something like that. I think he can be a 70, close to 70 point guy. And he's young. He's young. He has term. So I would just say, just for the fact that the Flyers, I think he's one of their biggest trade pieces besides the draft picks next year. So I'm hoping to see more from him. I think Jordan Hall from I forget what outlet he's with, but I think he just posted something about Joel Farabee and how he's kind of using that as motivation to get better. So definitely Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee are my top two right now. I don't have any expectations for Michkov. I just want to let him get adjusted to the game.
Well said. So yeah, I mean, we had a pretty decent Farabee discussion last week. I think we all like Farabee. But you mentioned the 70 points. Like, I would even be happy with 60, 30 guy. But you're right. Like, he makes sense. If the Flyers are going to make a move,
Yep.
They just re-signed Kike. He's not going anywhere. Michkov, obviously, We don't think anyone's going to trade for Couturier. They just signed Tippett.
Yep.
Forster, I don't think is
Forster's
going
next.
anywhere. He's on a
Yep.
great
Most
contract.
guys are too young. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, Farabee's signed for the next, I think, 3 or 4 years, making $5 million. Pretty reasonable for a second line guy.
Very reasonable.
And, you know, if you look at his first half or even maybe 3/4 of the year last year, he's playing extremely well. You're like you said it. He was making it look easy. He's playing really well with Scott Lawton, Travis Konechny. He was playing great. Like we all thought he could play, and then kind of dipped off a little bit. So it's like, all right, is pretty sure that's the real Farabee.
Mhm.
If he starts strong this year, do you think somebody comes sniffing around?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, like you said, like a second line guy, right? It's going to be hard to do that. Obviously, the power play was like abysmal, and even a slightly better power play, maybe his numbers, he does reach 70 or very close to it. Like Brian says here in the comments, you know, he's career records in most stats. Like, and it was like almost, I don't want to say a down year, but like it felt like that towards the end, right? So like that's what I mean. It's like this hidden thing that he does where like he's getting better. It might not have seemed like it towards the end as things started to fall off. But situationally, like you just said, with all the wingers, I don't see a scenario in which he stays. I mean, if he's under contract, so he has to, and that's great if they have a 70, 60, point third line guy who can get some power play minutes. But yeah, I just with the overflow of wingers, I just see him being moved. I won't be mad if he's not, because he can produce to a high level. He does have that high motor. That was the thing in coming out of college, right? Like he has that high motor. He could just go. Obviously, the neck injury probably slowed things down. It messed up an off season of training and things like that. Maybe he's just hard on himself. Like I really don't know. But yeah, that's why I'm expecting sort of the most, I don't want to say pressure on him, but it's up there for him this year, just because I think he is valued as a trade chip.
You're on mute, Jim.
Well, that's not good. Just to put things into a little bit into perspective here for Farabee, and his last 32 games, which were the last 3 months of the season. He had 5 goals, 5 assists, 10 points in the last 32 games. If you take away those 10, that's 40 points in 50 games. That's how he started. He started out great. He had career highs in points through 50 games of the season and went on to score just 5 more goals in the last 32 games. So Jack and I had a big discussion last week about that. We're kind of trying to figure out why. We don't really know. But yeah, he would seem to be the most expendable player. Jack, do you have anything you want to add in there before we move on topics?
Yeah, no matter how you feel about him, it just feels like he's the odd man out. Yeah. We have obvious needs we need to address, and you address those needs from a position of strength. And we know that it's not going to just be him. It probably just makes too much sense, regardless of how we discuss why he did what he did last week. We discussed it last week. But I just can't see them moving anybody they signed. Obviously, Michkov isn't going anywhere, and the other guys are too young. I don't think that a guy like Brink has enough oomph behind his name unless you're giving up like 2 of your first round picks and more. And I don't even know who you're trading for. In my head, everything is Zegras right now until the next center becomes available. But then, like, you really want to move Forrester? Like, I feel like we just scratched the surface on what this guy could do. So if I'm going to move a wing, it's going to be Farabee, no matter how I feel about him. And some of the age, the neck issues, and all that stuff, it's like, well, let that be somebody else's issue, regardless of how he turns out. But he's also the highest drafted of any of the players we mentioned too. But then again, he's a Hextall guy. He's not even a Fletcher guy. That's how long ago he was drafted. So maybe Brière's more likely to pull the trigger on him. So like, it just, you put all the evidence adds up, So I'm surprised. Well, I shouldn't say I was surprised, but they didn't do it this offseason. Maybe next, and this season will have a lot to do with that. So as a fan, I hope he's motivated, which means he's going to play better, which means he's going to give the Flyers put him in a good situation in the sense that they're not sure what to do. Well, we really like him. He's really good, but man, he's awfully valuable right now. So we'll see.
Yep. And that was a perfect segue to this. We can now do officially the Fletcher versus Hextall argument.
Oh my God, I'm not prepared for this. I mean, I'll do the best I can.
Jack doesn't have to be prepared. All he has to say is Hextall was worse. It's not even close. I put out a poll about this like
Fletcher
2 days
knew.
ago. Fletcher
knew.
knew. Chuck knew. Chuck knew. Yeah, I mean, both of them were just so bad. It's like, and it's hard to gauge just because you had one guy. Like, it wasn't Hextall sort of in a rebuild but compete mode? Like, it never was rebuild, right? Like, you signed JDR, you signed Dale Weiss to like a 4-year like ridiculous deal. Boyd Gordon, like, just like those like little plugins that he thought would make it, you know, and not capitalizing on like the main guys who should have been traded for much more than what the Flyers received. And then Chuck had to kind of go off of that, and Chuck was like, well, we're competing, but he was supposed to be rebuilding. Granted, he comes into the system that is supposed to have all these top-rated prospects, and how many of them, you know, sort of don't pan out, right? So it's like it's a mess. It was a mess between those. It's like a bad era. It's like the dark ages of Flyers hockey, where you don't even want to think about it.
Jim, before I respond, I have one question. Are we really doing this right now? I'm gonna have to call out of work tomorrow if we're doing it.
No, we're not. We're not
All
really.
right,
But
I'll leave
it
it
came
at
up for a second, I think, there, and I'm like, oh, you know what? We got them both
I didn't
here
know
at the
he was
same
going to
time.
say that, Anthony. That was Jim. It went off script.
You know, I'm ready to defend Chuck. No, he was awful.
We both can admit they both were freaking horrible.
Awful.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you could pick one move from one, you could pick one move from the next to compete with how bad that is. You know,
and I'll say this:
you can go all night.
What hurt me more was Hextall, though, because I was a disciple, a believer, and I was completely betrayed. So that is regardless of who you think. What Hextall hurt a lot more.
Yeah,
for me.
One of the happiest days of my life through the last 10 years for the Flyers was when they traded for Ryan Ellis. So that really sucked for me.
It seemed too good to be true now that I think back about it. And is it pronounced Poley? David Poley, I believe, was the GM for Nashville.
Yeah.
He's in the Hall of Fame now.
Yeah.
And when I look at how easy it was to acquire Ryan Ellis, like, come on. Yeah. Like Nolan Patrick and Phil Myers, I'm like, he knew something. He hands down knew something was wrong with Ellis. There's no way a Hall of Fame GM makes a move like that, gets all that money off his cap, and doesn't know something's going on. It only gets back freaking Nolan Patrick, who he immediately flips to Vegas, and Myers. So let's be real. Chuck got host. It is what it is.
Do you guys remember Phil Myers being preached to us as, you know, a potential top pair defenseman? He was undrafted.
Skates.
Yeah,
that's true.
And we all bought it. I bought it too.
There were so many guys. There were so many guys like that.
Hextall Kool-Aid I was drinking, man. Like,
it was bad. It was bad. I thought like Isaac Ratcliffe was going to be something.
Well,
I
thought that before the draft. Even I mean, yeah, he really got us.
Genius. Hextall's a genius. I don't know what was in that Kool-Aid. It was the Kings. He went over to the Kings. The farm system was great. He, I guess, helped them win a cup or whatever. It was like we sent him to college and he came back. It's like he was highly touted. Like any open GM spot wanted to interview Hextall, but we had first dibs. So like that all made sense. He's a Flyers guy. He's going to draft his first draft. One of the first things he did was trade Coburn for a first, a third, and Gudis. That's a great deal for and then you wind up using that pick, and then the pick you changed team and then didn't even play. He has blood clots. He gets 2 second-round picks for the guy. You know, moves up, takes Konechny, takes Pro. It looked great. Yep.
It's all downhill from there.
A third rounder for Ronaldo too. I remember
that still.
I think that pick became Ustamenko. Kirill
I'm pretty sure he was a third round pick, so I wouldn't shock me.
I think it was him. Granted, it never came to anything, but I remember when that happened. Like, Hextall's a god. He just got a third for Ronaldo, and it's just
shit, man.
But just looking back, it's like obviously in the moment you're gonna think it is great. Like you're gonna think it's wonderful, but looking back, we're like, man, we were sold this. Like
they just didn't hit on anything after the first round, and sometimes they miss. I mean, I guess you can say Hart in a second, but after that, Lindblom had a cup of coffee, and then who else? What?
Rubtsov?
Yeah, Rupstoff. That was
Are you talking hits?
Jay O'Brien. Oh no,
hits. Oh,
The
Jay O'Brien pissed me
Yeah,
off.
Jay O'Brien.
I'm
pick.
like,
Carson
I guess
Polanski.
he
It's
did
the
draft
smartest in the
Erskine.
room.
He did, he did draft Ursa, but goalies are such a crapshoot. It's like he got lucky, if anything. But
Yeah.
man, what are you gonna do? I won't do this. I won't do this.
So there was
Well, go
another
ahead.
part mentioned in there where, if we're listening here, a lot of what the Flyers have been doing to bring in premier talent is acquiring it via trade. And this is where we're kind of going to get into that conversation. And Jack, was when I think this was because who just signed that mega deal? Draisaitl, right? $14 million over 8 years, and obviously he re-signed with Edmonton. But I think I was jokingly saying Draisaitl to the Flyers for a lot of this year, or just kind of tweeting it out randomly. And so I think Tom in our group chat kind of remembered that, and he said it was never going to happen. And this is how our Flyers and free agents talk kind of escalated. And I think Charlie O'Connor even posted something about this. And if you guys have been listening to our show for the last few years, this topic has come up between Jack and I multiple times. And my stance on this is, if the Flyers are going to bring in premier talent, it was always going to have to be through trade, if not the draft. And my reasons for that, and I want to hear your guys' reasons as well. Actually, let me go to you guys first. And since this was a more of a topic that I think you and I were going on here, like, what are your thoughts on this? Can the Flyers bring in premier free agents anymore? Are they a premier free agent destination like they were back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s even?
Yeah, we were having this conversation earlier. And I've actually been thinking about it, and I don't know. I don't think they're a premier destination. It's like, oh, I got to go to Philly. I think a lot of it now, what we're seeing is like the no income tax states, younger guys wanting more of the lifestyle sense of like, I could play by the beach, pay less in taxes. And those teams are becoming better because of that. Like we're seeing the Florida teams, the desert teams, like they're going to be better because of that. I don't think it's like it was like this whole culture, we want to be a destination. Were they? When's the last time they were like sort of that destination team? Maybe.
Unlimited money.
I mean, but they have like no choice but to do it through trade. Like you said, the Charlie O'Connor tweet. It's like, if you're paying attention to free agency, it's like the Flyers aren't going to be able to do that especially with who they're going to have to re-sign potentially on their own roster. Forster's going to be getting paid maybe a little bridge deal now, but he's going to get paid. What's Frost? He's going to get paid. Farabee, if he stays with the team, is going to have to get paid again in a few years. But I'm not really too sure. I don't think it's like it was back in the days, obviously. And hopefully, I think Michkov is a good start of that. I mean, we just lost Cutter, Gauthier, right? Like, I mean, that situation might be a little different, but like top prospects, Kolosov, like it's not like there's just scenarios now where it's not a good look for the team. I don't want to blame Briere. Some people are just like, it's Briere's fault. I've given him some, I've talked about it and blamed him a little tiny bit, but like there's only so much he could do. It seems to be that the new age, the new game, like the player has more control now and wants more of a say in where they're going to go. We're seeing it throughout the league. Who's the guy on the Jets that just kind of was like, yeah, I'm out.
McGordy.
Yeah, and he's for Pittsburgh now. It's just like you're seeing the players have more of a say. It hasn't really worked out in the Flyers' favor right now. Obviously, Michkov, luck happened. He landed. He wanted to come there. People call it a lot of luck, but so much bad luck has happened that sometimes you just have to accept the good luck. And that could be the good luck that starts Philly being a premier destination again. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think winning has a lot to do with it. I think kids these days, it's really two things. It's money and lifestyle. And the other thing on top of those Florida teams, besides the income taxes, it's the friggin' beach. Like that's hard to fight too. I really don't think players come into the league now like, man, I really want to play for an original 6 team. I don't think they give a shit. Yeah. Like I think they just want money and a lifestyle. And maybe that's somewhere in there. Like I think of like the NCAA college football game that just came out and what you need to do to like recruit guys. And there's like things like that, like college prestige is one of them. I think that's so low on all their lists. Like, I don't think they care. It's money, opportunity, and lifestyle, and the Flyers, unfortunately, the kids today, like, they just sucked for the last 10 years. Like, they went to the Cup in 2010, and it's been all downhill, and it's, why would you're not going to look at that team and be like, I have to go to Philly. It's cold here. The fans are going to really give you a hard time if you don't fucking try. So you better overpay the shit out of me. So it's a tough sell. Like, one of the worst takes I've seen on Twitter, and this goes back a bit. Sir, how should the Flyers rebuild? Should they do this? Should they do that? I think they should do what the Rangers did. I'm like, really? Okay, so we're gonna have a Norris caliber defenseman demand. He's been through 2 teams at this point to go to the Rangers. Never play, and that's the other thing that irks me about these guys. You said these players have too much choice of where they go. Never stepped on NHL ice. Never stepped on NHL ice. That's ludicrous to me. Ludicrous. But you're right. They do, because they'll bitch and moan and they'll figure it out. So, yeah. So Adam Fox just says, I'm not playing for you. Gets traded. I'm not playing for you. Winds up where he wants to go. And it's one of many reasons why we shouldn't rebuild it. The Rangers did, because you're not getting a first overall pick in a year you make the playoffs, thanks COVID. The Adam Fox thing. And then Panarin hits free agency. Is like, yeah, I'm going to the Rangers. Like, that's the only team I'm going to. Like, so yeah, it cost him a chunk of money, but he already had his destination picked out. Are we going to bank on that? Yeah, good luck. Good luck. Again, that's where the luck just falls to your favor. It's not going to be the Flyers. I can see a lot of these, like, people on other players from other outside the United States. Well, they're going to be drawn to New York, Chicago, LA, like the mega cities. Like, I can see that being a thing, because it's lifestyle. So it's a big, big thing. And then I think the no income tax in the southern states, the beach states, that just hurts us even more, unfortunately. Just another factor. So you're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. And drafting, they seem to be in line to be doing that, but can they make the trades? We need, in the worst way, a Mark Recchi for Desjardins Leclerc trade. We need that caliber of trade to really put this team back on track. And I like where they're at, but there's some serious needs at certain positions. And I don't Jim, I bring it up all the time. Like, I just don't think the draft alone is going to be the way to go.
No, and if you look at the roster now, it's mainly built through draft picks, right? And when and I know people are kind of pissed off because they're not drafting in the top 5 every year, but the team is built through the draft, through the Flyers drafts, anyways. They were able to trade Giroux, and we're lucky enough to get Tippett. He panned out. That's one way to go through things. You trade for project guys, or what's the word I'm looking for? Reclamation projects. And sometimes they work out. And I like that avenue. The Flyers, let's be honest, they can't attract players like the Rangers can, like a Chicago can and will when they get going over there. So they need to operate more, in my opinion, like the Carolina Hurricanes, and more like and I know Florida's a no income tax state, but the way that they went after guys like Verhaeghe before he really blew up, right? Like Tampa, for some reason, let him go. Florida brought him in. They need to find these gems, these middle 6 guys that maybe weren't getting a shot on a stacked team, but with us, if we give him the ice time, he'll blow up. They need that's the way they need to be, in my opinion, going, because they're not going to be able to attract these top line guys who can pick wherever the hell they want to play in the United States or Canada if they want. And they're going to, what we're seeing, like you saw Nashville this summer, Stamkos, Brady Shea. I think they got another player. I can't remember the name.
You get Marchessault?
Marchessault. I mean, he came from Vegas. So these players, these players, and the NHL knows this. I was just looking up to make sure that Washington is a no income tax state. I think it is. If somebody can confirm that and let me know, but we're seeing expansions to Seattle, Washington. Utah is a no income tax state, I'm pretty sure. So that's not a coincidence. You got the 2 teams in Florida. You got Dallas. There's rumored to be a team in Houston at some point, a no income tax state. the league knows what they're doing. And, today's player, I think our generation, when maybe they didn't have these destinations and no income tax teams, playing for an original six team, and you got the history and they looked up to the players that played for those teams and all that stuff. That meant something for them. Today's player, if they're good enough, they have an opportunity to pick where they want to live. They get to keep more of their money, start a family, party, whatever the hell it is. I've wondered this now for a few years. Why the hell would they pick Philly over one of these other places? So when this conversation came up, it was like, what, let me try. Let's get Anthony on and see what he thinks here, because we've had this talk and I don't know how they're going to do it unless Michkov is that good. Or my other thing was, maybe the Flyers wingers turn out to all be something. And, there's a center out there that's like, I want to play in between these guys. I'll put up career stats on this team, and get a good chunk of dough doing it. Otherwise, why would you pick Philly over any of those other places?
I do think that the one thing that they do have is like the Flyers haven't won. It's like Michkov, right? Like he says, like, I want to win there. Like winning here, if you do, if things work out, and I think with the wingers they do, I think they have the potential to have, like, I mean, if you look at goals last season, if we expect all these players to take a step up, they could have near 4 wingers nearing 30 goals, and that's without the big piece that they're missing. So like you said, if you see Tippett getting 30 goals, you see Konechny getting 30 goals, Forster, maybe, I think he had 20, something like that. Farabee had 23. I mean, if these guys are pushing 30 goals, and Mitch, I don't know what Michkov's going to do. I don't want to attach like a point expectation for him. That's kind of been my thing this offseason. I just want to see what he does and like the impact that he brings to the game. But winning here, like actually getting it done here, your name will live on forever. You'll be, and granted, it's going to be in other places too, but it's going to be special when it does. I don't know when it does. Hopefully it happens soon, but like when it happens in Philly, it's going to be very, very special. And your name will just live on in the city forever. You'll be a legend, and you'll just be like sort of, I don't know if you like a Kelsey status of the Eagles or something like that, like beloved, but like you're gonna be up there, like in the ranks with like the Broad Street Bullies, and you see how like they were royalty for so long and still are to a degree. Granted, we haven't won since then, so that's part of the reason why. But like, you know what I mean? Like they're on that pedestal, and being on that pedestal in Philly sports is a huge deal. Like having that guy like Bryce Harper sign with the Phillies, like having those big name guys and seeing what happens when they win. I think it might be easier than I think we may be making it. But again, like no income tax, like you said, a beast lifestyle. Kids aren't talking about, the Flyers history in the 80s and Bob Clark, and I want to play for the Flyers because Bob Clark was a Flyer. Like we see it differently because we're fans of the team, but these young guys coming up are not thinking like that at all.
True.
The only young 80s player that these kids would know today probably be Hextall, and it's not because he played in the 80s. It's because he ruined the Flyers.
For sure. So yeah, it's hopefully they got things figured out with the draft. As we mentioned, most of the team is drafted by the Flyers, and then Luchenko, Michkov. There's a plethora of other players that they've drafted that maybe we can look forward to seeing. But yeah, it's going to have to be through trade. That's why we were mentioning Farabee earlier. Whatever trade that's going to be, Flyers. I think the Flyers know this too. Was the other point I wanted to make. I think they know. If it's not going to be the draft, it's going to be through a massive trade. And I think that's why they're stockpiling all these first round picks in 2025. It's these picks, let's see where they land. But 2025 is a deeper draft. A team's likely to get a better player. They could put a package together and bring a guy in, when some of this dead cap rolls off. Like to me, there's evidence that there's a plan. The dead cap's going to start falling off between next season and I think 3 years. I think something like 15 million comes off the book, something like that. Forget the exact number. And they have the assets to bring somebody in. So I think they know that that's the plan too. They're going to have to trade for somebody, right?
But I don't even think it needs to be that crazy, right? Like I'm saying, like they have 4 wingers that are probably nearing 30 goals. Like if you, it might be just a plug one center in there and maybe a defenseman. Like kind of got to see, like hopefully Drysdale pans out and becomes this top 4 guy that's like QB, like sort of like the younger version of like Niskanen for us for a long time. But I mean, I don't want to sound crazy, but like, I don't think they're that far off in terms of those pieces. Like if they plug in one decent center and Michkov is what we think he's going to be or close to it, I mean, their power play is even slightly less abysmal than last season. They walked into the playoffs. Now, granted, the division had some problems, whatever the case may be. But I really don't think they're that far off. They need a center, maybe a little bit more depth there, and like a defenseman. Also depends on this season who pans out, who they can get rid of. Like, is Ristolainen alive? Can he prove he can do something, get that money off the book early so you don't have to wait for 3 years down the line? Because at the same time, we need to see these players taking that next step. Like they can't go any further back. Like no tank talk, nothing like that. Like we all expect these guys to get better. So that means the team needs to be better and compete and produce. So it's like it's plugging in guys, but it can't be like the Hextall plug-in guys. It has to be the guys that they actually need to take that next step forward.
Yeah, totally agree. I think that's going to do it for the show. We're an hour and 5 minutes in. We've kept Ant for over half an hour. Anything that we wanted to add in here, Jack, before we wrap up?
I just want to get your guys' final yes or no. Does Kolosov show up to camp?
Jim, you go first.
I'm going to say no.
I'm definitely no. I'm a well-known no for a while now.
I guess I have to go no. Like I'm just looking at the Cutter thing and like the Goche. Like if you didn't show up the one time, like it's just not a good look. But I mean, I don't know. I know you were on here talking I don't know how long ago it was, but like, you know, if you're not in the NHL, the KHL is probably better than the AHL. But it comes in the sense of like they want to develop this guy here, see what he is. And again, kind of like Jack, like we're talking about these young kids calling the shots. Like I know you're like, get over here right now. You know what I mean? It's like,
I mean, he theoretically could play in the NHL this year if Fedotov falters, if Urson falters, and like they like him. They think he could be better than both of those players. Yeah. You just got to come play in the AHL for a little bit. You're not interested? Like, give me a break. Like, this is ridiculous. I just can't.
One slight injury to a goalie, and he's probably up. Yeah, like
injury too. Yeah,
a slight injury, and it's the Flyers and goalies. So, like, what do we think's going to happen? Like, what's the luck that has happened with goalies in the past? So like a goalie, it's almost like destiny, or it's like it's going to happen that a goalie's going to get injured. Something's going to happen, and he could have been that next call up. So then the Flyers are going to have to scramble, and I think the Flyers know that too. Like they're like Fedotov and Urson. Like I have some. I mean, they're huge question marks. We want them to do good, but like, you never know. Like something could happen, and he would be one call up away, and then the whole being over in Russia thing could just really ruin it. So I'm going to say no. I don't think he shows up, but it would relieve a lot of stress in terms of like just the way it looks for the organization, like we've been talking about. Like, is it a premier destination? The guy who signed a contract with you is holding out from the team because of whatever reason. It's not a good look. Doesn't matter who's at fault.
It's no longer money. It used for 20 plus years of my life. It's a holding out for money. Now we're homesick.
Well, he's not a young guy too. That's the thing that if he was a 17 or 18-year-old who signed his entry-level contract, okay, I get it. But like Michkov's doing it, expectations are like kids are coming from all over to play in the NHL. Michkov's talking about how like the NHL is where the best of the best is. Like, that's where I want to be. I mean, don't you want to kind of be around that and get prepared for it, even if you're not starting in it? And I'm sure that's how the Flyers feel about it. But yeah, I don't think I don't think so, but I don't know. I'm just kind of like have no expectations. And if it happens, I'll be excited.
I never thought we were going to have this conversation. Season 6 has been fucking interesting, Jim. Like, unbelievable. The Cutter stuff, this stuff. Who are these people? Like, it's the plot.
I mean, would it be any other way? Would it be any other way, Jack? Let's be honest. Like, it's the Flyers we're talking about.
They never fail to give us content. That's why we go year round. It's just always something.
It's the Mr. Krabs meme where he says, 0 days of nonsense. It's just on repeat. Like, what's next, right?
It's
like
the truth.
Nobody's been arrested lately. What's going to happen? Like, what's
Knock
going to
on
happen
wood.
next?
Yeah, knock on wood. Yeah, it was well.
It's
We didn't have an
just,
arrest last year.
Top prospect gone. Top goalie prospect
Arrested.
Doesn't want to get arrested. Another goalie doesn't want to play.
Oh, God.
It's always something. Win. I just want a drama-free season, Chris. I'll leave it to Chris. I just want a drama-free season with guys taking steps forward and just see where it goes from that. That's all we can do.
We'll see. Forget it. I don't feel great about that, but Flyers hockey's a couple weeks away, man. The rookie game starts. We're 9 days away now. 13th and 14th, I think they're in Allentown at the PPL Center. They're laying down the ice today, so it's just about hockey season, folks. Get ready. Next week we'll be hyping up the rookie games. We'll be there in some capacity, and Flyers hockey's around the corner. And I want to thank you for coming on, taking the time, man. Where can everyone find you on Twitter? And if you have any recent work, where can they find it?
PhillyIsFlyer.com. Nothing's, have a podcast there usually when something happens. Hopefully as we move into, the season starting, there'll be more to talk about. But you can Flyers Ant too on Twitter. Flyers Ant is where you can follow me.
Awesome. And then Sean C. posting up a comment. Kurt said Michkov will be in one rookie game, not both. Better be Friday, he says. I assume that's when Sean's going. And I'm good with that. One game. It's going to be a lot. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for the episode. Once again, Ed, thanks for coming on.
Thank you,
Jack,
guys.
I'm Jim. One last time, give us a subscribe, a follow. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Watch on YouTube. Set alerts for weekly shows. And head over to hwhockey.net for all of our latest episodes and articles. Once again, thanks for hanging out. Have a good rest of your week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.